So I go in the jail and I've now strapped 2 packages of fairly chunky stuff to my undercarriage, call it. Going in and I'm scouting the car park thinking there's no police, there's nothing untoward in this jail, I'm okay. My earlier days were a very good upbringing, keenly involved in football and a lot of sports, but ended up going down the football route, having been, it kind of become apparent that I was fairly good. So that was my kind of early path into life. But yeah, fantastic upbringing, great family. And it became apparent to me at maybe the age of, say, 22, 23, that football wasn't going to happen, as it does with many, many men and girls. And my girlfriend at the time, her mum was in the prison service. She said, well, why don't you apply to join the prison service? And you know, when you just think, did I just hear that? Like, are you serious? Put the wine down. You know, that kind of moment. I think the seed was sown that day, and I thought, could I? Couldn't I? Again, bravado, ego. Oh yeah, of course I can. I can do that. It's just, what is it, people? Not a problem. Not fully thinking about what is entailed within that job. I was completely the wrong person to do that job. I mean, looking back on it, you know, the credentials of a prison officer. First and foremost, you can't be a people pleaser. Well, I think I'd spent most of my life trying to do that. I didn't look at it from a discipline side of that I would have to inflict or follow discipline. I mean, I'm not stupid. I understand it. What a jail is, you know. People are in there for doing certain things, and you would have to kind of upkeep that. But you can't, when you go into that environment, it's like, it's nothing that I've ever experienced. You go for initial testing, which is like maths, English, you know, basic educational stuff. Then you go and do a role play based training. So you would go into a training centre, which at the time was in Leeds, and you come into a room just like this. There are cameras, there is a scenario that you have to kind of act out and how you would deal with it. Now, these are not prison-based problems. It could be, for instance, an angry shopkeeper. It could be a road rage incident. And what they're kind of doing is looking to see how you deal with a different pressure. And then eventually you go for a physical and a medical. You know, you don't have to be fit to join the prison service, which again, kind of, I was thinking, well, hang on a minute. Surely you've got to be quite fit to do this job, because you will be running around a jail, trust me. So in the middle of your training, slap bang in the middle, you technically go back to the jail that you're going to work in, just to give you a taster. And, you know, kind of walking through the jail, absolutely fine, like quite a new build. So I'm thinking, yeah, all right, yeah. And we went onto the wing when it was association, which is, for people who don't know, where basically the whole wing is out. So you've got 70 lads there roaming wild or doing what lads do. And I remember he opened the door. So there's a gate and then there's a door. So the gate's open, you think, okay, the door opened. And it was like, I walked onto there and I thought, oh, wow, I didn't expect this. And I looked round and I couldn't see a white shirt. I'm thinking, what the hell is this? You know, there's 70 lads here, plus 70 on the other side. Like, this can't be right. Where's all the prison officers? And sat down, there's like 3 soft chairs. There were 2 prison officers sat there. And, you know, nothing against them, but they were elderly. You know, one was I would say she was coming up 60. And another lady there that, I mean, as you can see, I'm not a big person. But I think then the alarm bell started to ring, pardon the pun, but I'm thinking, what are these going to do if it kicks off? So the lads in there were 21. So there wasn't a big age gap between us. Like I said, I mentioned the officer there that would be 50s, 60s. I'm a 26-year-old lad who looked quite fresh-faced then. I mean, obviously the years have taken the toll, but, you know, when you walk in there, it's like, oh God. You know, you've got big lads there that are involved in heavy stuff. a lot from Liverpool, Manchester, because Lancaster Farms housed Liverpool and Manchester to take them out of there. So you're thinking, I mean, some faces that you would see, you'd be like, I've seen him on the news. But the face, you've got to show the face of, oh yeah. But underneath I was worried. Or I knew at that point, oh no, maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew here.
Hi, welcome to Deep.
This channel goes a level deeper.
Deep is a brand new YouTube channel that is dedicated to the amazing experiences of incredible individuals.
We basically try and answer the questions that you always want the answer to, but you don't feel like you can ask.
Myself and the team are responsible for a lot of the factual content that you might have seen on YouTube, Minutes With, The Gap, Agree to Disagree, among others. And we set up this new studio and this new channel to go a level deeper.
We will be uploading a new video every single week.
There'll be a wide range of stories, so please hit the subscribe bell.
Please let us know in the comments if there's anything you want us to cover, any stories that you've been interested in, any questions you wanted to ask.
We hope you enjoy. Now back to our story.
My second day in, there was an officer on my wing who I worked with, who strangely enough is now under investigation. And we were on an evening, you are on pretty much lockdown, so you don't get a hot meal, you don't get 3 meals a day, you get a packed lunch of a night time. Now, because it's only minimal staff in the jail, you go to each door, almost with like a little canteen trolley, and you give the canteen. Now, this lad at the time had been having issues with this officer that I was doing the run with. I mean, I'm only 2 days in. So it's just thank the Lord that he was huge. But I'm going down, and this has been going on all day between this officer, you know, the lad wanting to come out of his cell to use the phones, to do whatever. The officer was quite a hardline officer. Looking back on it, very ego-driven, very about himself. And he's unlocked the door, and the tensions, you can imagine that lad's been locked in there pretty much for nigh on 23 hours. As he's come out of the door, he's forced the door open and just come straight out for the canteen trolley that has gone everywhere. We're talking ham and cheese sandwiches everywhere. And he's just come straight out for him and gone for him. Now, that is day 2. And I'm there as a, 11 stone wet through newbie. And I'm thinking, what do I do now? Because there aren't the other officers on the wing. So fight or flight scenario, I'm thinking, right, what do I do? So he's gone for him, wrestled him, and I've gone for the lad as well. And we've managed to get him on the floor. And because there's only 2 of you, there is no third officer to do a proper control and restraint. You need 3 officers for a proper control and restraint, 1 on each arm and 1 to protect the head. So like I said, all that goes out the window. I've just described to you what should happen. In real terms, a lad's flew out of his cell and gone for someone, and I've just jumped on him. We've both managed, it took us both, and he was twice the size of me, this big fella, to put this lad on the floor. And eventually he managed to get to his radio to kind of call for help. And then you get other officers, like I said, running 200 metres across the jail to come and help you. The lad's warmed to me because of my age and because of kind of my personal skills. And I was always I would rather talk to the lad. But the other side of it, the negative side of me being a prison officer, probably was what I've just described to you. Too close, too open. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's a very fine line of being a good officer or a bad officer, because the prison service promote you also being a friend, a confidant, whatever you want to call it. But then as soon as you do that, you then leave yourself open to, like we will get to, corruption. It was a build-up. It wasn't particularly one afternoon I thought, do you know what, I'm going to do it. A personal flaw of mine at the time, I wasn't speaking about it. I wasn't going home and telling people what was going on. Purely because I would go home at night, having done 12 hours of that, I would go home at night and think, the last thing I want to do is open my mouth. I think at that point I'd started to drink. In fact, I know I had started to drink to not even unwind, just to kind of stop thinking. I think that was building and building and building over maybe a year. And the relationships, like I said, with the lads, I was quite close with them. They obviously saw that I was probably on the decline. due to pressures, drinking, outside life, home life. And it may start with, I don't know, an extra phone call. It may start with an extra shower. Can you post this letter? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can I stay out of my cell? All these little, can I have an extra gym session? And I think they're the little kind of throw-in-tos to see what you're like. And I think over time that was building up. And that basically is the day that I went into the cell. And I noticed that this lad, the hard part about this is, people have said, that's rubbish that happened. I do believe there's a genuine element of it, because I know when I went in, there was a lad in there who I eventually said yes to, whose father was very unwell and he was in hospital. Now, it was actually in his notes. So I knew that was genuine. So I'm in the cell. The lad's been upset for 2-3 days, visibly upset as well, crying. I've had other lads coming to me saying, you need to keep your eye on him. So I went in, he's in bits, my dad. As I was about to leave, he said, at the time, Davo, trying to soften that relationship of officer-prisoner. And he said, Davo, please, I'll do anything. Will you bring me a mobile phone in? And I was like, don't be stupid. Walked out the cell, made sure he was all right, walked out the cell. I think on maybe dinner rounds, he'd asked again. And I said, no, stop asking me. And I don't know why, but it was probably on my mind at dinner. So when he asked me again, the worst thing I ever did, I said, well, how am I going to do that? And he didn't mention money at the time. I said, well, how am I going to do that? And I don't know why. I mean, how ridiculous is that? But I'd got to that point. I had no control over what was going on in my life, my decision-making processes, my moral had gone, clearly, because I just said, how do I do it? And I said, how do I do it? And he said, I'll give you a number. And he handed me a number on a fag packet, for want of a better word. And he said, I'll give you, 400 quid for doing it. My brain automatically at that point, because of where I was in my own life, thought, well, it's okay because I don't get searched when I come in. In my entire time of being in the prison, I'd been searched as an officer going in 2-3 times max, and they were pat-down searches. So while my brain had automatically thought, right, well, I'll do it this way. I mean, how ridiculous is that? From joining a job to then thinking like that. So I called the number. I drove out of the city for some reason into a phone box. When you used to be able to put money in a phone box. I drove into a phone box, dialed the number, thinking I was some mastermind, and then arranged to meet these lads. And they said, right, well, we'll be 40 minutes. So I knew they were coming from down Merseyside way. So yeah, he said, right, we'll meet you in a hotel car park at the bottom of the city. Pulled my car up. A car pulled next to me, and I kind of looked, and it was 2 lads, obviously with the hoodies on and whatnot. They didn't want to be seen, because for them it could be a setup as well. Wound the window down. I looked across. One of them nodded. He said, are you Lee? I said, yes. And, there was no transaction, no niceties. It was a case of chucked something into my car, and then a roll of like 400 notes, and then drove off. Now I'm now sat in my car thinking, what the hell have I just done? I remember going into him. So you go through the jail and whatnot, you go into him, and he had like a window that overlooked where the officers go in. Now, obviously he knew it because he said, what time are you in tomorrow? I said, 7:30, whatever. I'm walking in. I remember him stood at the bars like that. And I kind of looked, and he looked at me and he went like that, and I just nodded. Walked in, did the unlock for breakfast, because I thought I can't just storm into someone, and say, I'm just going in to see if he's all right. Waited to the unlock, went into his cell, because prison officers do cell checks. Gone in there, and I've said, yeah, I've got it. And at that time, I said, I'll leave it in the laundry. So the laundry is like on the corner of the wing, loads of stuff going on in there, because the cleaners, that's technically their work area where they do all the prisoners' washing, etc., etc. So I've hidden it in there and I've told him where it is, and I've said, don't ask me again. Don't know why I've said that, because in my mind, I actually firmly believed when I said that, that was it. Cue another 2 or 3 days. I'll give you this to do that. We've turned him. Let's keep chucking the money at him, because clearly, you know, he's doable as such. So there wasn't that kind of pull anymore. It now become more of a business transaction. I would say in its height, 2 or 3 a week. I would go with 2 a week, probably about 50 grand over a year's period, around that estimate. I remember being sat in the garden, clear as day, drinking. This was maybe 11 o'clock in the morning. I'd gone to the shop and bought a newspaper, one of the red tops, let's call it. And I turned, scrolling through, not really taking an interest. And I opened the middle page spread, and it was mobile phones in Lancaster jail. And I looked at it and I thought, am I seeing this? Is this real? And strangely enough, one of the person who was involved with what I was doing he took a picture of himself in a cell with a mobile phone, a selfie, and he was in the top corner, and there was a big middle page spread on corruption in jails. So at that point, obviously I'm now thinking the game is up, but I've still got 2 packages in my house to the tune of, let's call it, I mean, they reckon things in jail are 10 times their value. So if these packages are worth 300 quid, you know, there were 3 grand in there. So I'm sitting on quite a lot of someone's potential earnings. I dug myself into this massive crater of danger and stupidity. So I know I'm on an early shift in the morning, and I changed it to a super early shift, which would mean I was technically one of the first few in the jail. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to take the whole lot in one, deliver it, done, and then accept no more. Therefore, I can't be tried, you know. So I go in the jail, and I've now strapped 2 packages of fairly chunky stuff to my undercarriage, call it. Going in, and I'm scouting the car park thinking, there's no police, there's nothing untoward in this jail. I'm okay. Like I said, I've not been searched a lot. And as I'm walking in, I'm now thinking, door opens. Lee, can I have a word? And I thought, no, yeah, I can do, yeah. Obviously, I'm doing somersaults in my mind and my stomach. But it wasn't untoward. Sometimes people did want a word with you, you know, to find out what's going on the wing, or to tell you that someone may have tried to harm themselves or hang themselves. He said, I don't want to ask you this. Have you got anything on you that you shouldn't have? And I said, no, nothing, just my sandwiches and a drink and PE kit, shall we call it. And he went, I'm going to ask you again, have you got anything on you today that you shouldn't have? And I said, no. He said, I'm going to have to take you upstairs. There's a Northwest area search team waiting for you. And at that point, it was like, boom, game up. I went up the stairs. There was 2 sniffer dogs. There was some fairly big prison officers and a governor and maybe the number 2 governor as well. So it was kind of like, I knew it was up. And I went over to the dogs, and I said to the guy who's asked me, who was a principal officer, kind of like senior management on the wing, I said, do you know what? Stop there. I'm going to give you what you want. I reached into where I had them. I gave them the packages, and I said, I'm sorry. He said, you know the protocol, we're still going to have to strip search you. So even after doing that, I then had to go into a room and strip search, as you would a prisoner. And that room then, I know this is going to sound ridiculous. It's kind of all the anxiety and all the stress just left my body. It's like, it's up. Someone else has taken the ball out of my court. Someone else has taken the decision away from me. And it's going to sound mental, but it was like a relief. I knew in my mind I'd be going to jail, but I sat there. The governor was sat on the desk. He started asking me loads of questions. Tell us who you're involved with, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it's the calmest I've ever been. I just went, I'm really sorry, I'm not going to speak to you until I've spoken to my solicitor. 4 years. For want of a better word, I didn't cooperate with anyone throughout, as in no information given, no names given, because I thought the risk factor of me grassing or giving information as to who I was involved with could probably hurt me more within my own life than what I did if I was to do extra time in prison. So I'd kind of already made that deal with myself that I would keep my mouth shut and I would take the bigger hit. Policemen have a much tougher time in prison than maybe a prison officer, dependent upon what that prison officer is in for. If that prison officer was in for instance, let's pick something, drink driving, he might be getting a real tough time. If he was in for, I don't know, assaulting his missus or someone on the street, that is real tough time. Policemen, it doesn't matter what you've done, you're in for a tough time. With me, because of doing what I was doing, if we look at the simplicity of it in the criminal mind, I was kind of almost half of one of them. But then you will always get the mentality from a prisoner, well, he was an ex-white shirt. He used to lock us up. So it was literally a 50-50 split for me, which again kind of, I guess if you're a copper, you know you're hated. Again, it's a constant. Round jail is the anxiety that it's unparalleled, I would say, because every corner you turn, every eye you looking, you're thinking, you know I'm an ex-prison officer. Do you want to hurt me or are you all right? And it's like, it's head tennis all day long. It's exhausting. But yeah, so the guy, fast forward, we were in close conditions together. There was 3 policemen. They were a member of the Matrix drug squad. They were going out to drug busts. For instance, they were going out and seizing a ton of cannabis. Well, guess what? Only half a ton was going back to where it should be disposed of. They were then channeling that in avenues within the criminal world to get rid of the stuff. So their cards were marked straight away. So basically, in the outset, they're having drug dealers off, which is pretty hairy stuff. So they were in there, closed conditions. 2 of the policemen decided to stay in closed conditions, even though they were eligible to go to an open prison. But they thought best that if they went to an open prison, you've got free for all. You could have anything going on at any given time. There's no prison staff hardly. And you're on your own billet that's just managed by the lads on that billet. So, and there's some hefty people in there that had come into the end of the sentences that have still got it in them. I always knew that I, again, maybe stupid, that I would be all right. They would never put me anywhere in the north of England because they said I had links to a bigger aspect of it going on. They had me down as links in London. That's ridiculous. So they would never put me near home. So I opted to go to Sudbury in the Midlands, still 2.5 hours from my house. And I don't know why, this policeman thought it would be a good idea to come with me. All right, yeah, fine, that's cool. We get there. I mean, how bizarre is this? The prison service both put us in the same cell. I guess they're thinking continuity and that we know each other, etc. So I'm now at college, fast forward, obviously, quite a few months. I'm now at college doing electrical foundation training because I thought when I come out of jail, I'm going to be an electrician. That's the only thing I can do. You know, nobody's bothered what I've done if I'm a sparky. That's wrong, by the way. Everybody's bothered. So he's off doing his charity work, which is driving the prison minibus to take people out to college to work. And just so people know, these are people that have been risk assessed and are at the very end of the sentence where we're trying to get back into society. So on my days off from college, I work in the prison hub, helping lads with application forms, court letters, solicitors' letters. Because of my job background, I thought I'd be quite good at that. And lads used to come to me with 2 other lads as well, who were hardened prisoners who'd been in the system a long time, so they had experience. And I remember 2 of the lads at dinner time, you go off to have your dinner time meal, and I've locked myself behind my door. So therefore, I can lock myself away, and I've locked the door, shut the flap, bang, bang, bang on the door. And I'm like, well, that's a bit weird. If it was a prison officer, he'd just open it. Bang, 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 sort of kind of the flap. I said, are you all right? Let us in. And it's the 2 lads who I work with in the hub. And I thought, something doesn't seem right here. You know, they weren't just dropping by for a brew. So they've said, let us in. So I've let them in. And I'll be honest with you, I'm thinking, right, there's a kettle there in the corner. I'll clock one of them with a kettle and I'll have it with the other. Again, stupid, because you're in fight or flight mode all the time. You're thinking, if it goes off, what am I going to do? What shall I hit him with? So anyway, they've sat on the end of the bed, put the kettle on. And I thought, right. And they've looked at me square and they said, we know who you are. We know you're an ex-screw. We're not too bothered about you. You're all right. And they've said, however, that lad that you share a cell with is an ex-copper. Now, I knew he was, obviously. But I was like, I tried to play dumb. I was like, what? No, he's not. He's told me he was a, I don't know, whatever, come up with a story. And he went, no, he's a copper. And not only that, he's an ex-drug copper. And he's been having people off that are in this jail. And I thought, oh, sugar. And I was like, right. And they said, this is what we want you to do. Do not be on this bill here tonight at a given time, because we don't want you to be involved in it. We do not want to hurt you. So there's a 50-50 choice there. I'm thinking, well, it's all right. I'm not involved. It's not going to happen to me. But then there's a human side of me that thinks, hang on a minute. I know this lad. He used to do a job like me, similar, white shirt. He's got a family. I've seen his family in visits in the closed prison. He's got 3 little girls. And all I could see was that side of it. So I could have quite easily walked away and let what happened happen. Now, I've said this story in the past, and I get called grass, I get called this. I'm not bothered about that. I know now that 3 little girls and his wife have still got a husband, because I know what was going to happen to him. He was going to get seriously hurt. I stewed it over for 20 minutes, and I thought, right, I need to make a right choice, knowing full well that it's probably not going to do me well. So I went to the officer and said, look, I need a word with you, but very quietly. And I said, this is going to happen tonight. And he said, right, okay, thank you for that. Straight away, he said, you know what's going to happen to you now, Lee, don't you? I said, yeah. I get put in the block because I'm now technically a grass or a problem, or I now know that knowledge. It could be me next. Put in the seg. All my stuff is gathered in 2 big plastic bin bags and just put in with me. Everything that I've organised, all my pictures and whatnot. That gets thrown in. And the next thing, maybe 2-3 hours later, this guy, same thing, they've gone and got him from the minibus, brought him back, and there's 2 seg skells. He's come in, he was like, wow, what's going on? And I'm like, I tell you what's going on. You're lucky you're here. He's gone into his cell. And I always remember it. Now, maybe it was an oversight for him at that time. For me, I'd done the right thing. At one point, did he not say, oh, cheers for that? It was like, you know what I mean? It was like, and he said, I remember it. He said, where are we going next? And I thought, what do you mean? Where are we going? This is just, I've just lost my college course now because I can't continue there because I'm going to get sent to a different location. And I'm thinking, wow. So anyway, that was that. The biggest problem throughout all this has been the guilt and the shame, and probably trying to hide that. Now, I mentioned drinking earlier on. That then went to the next level. Upon leaving prison, I think I was on a high coming out of prison thinking, right, well, I've got my life back, as we all do. You let out the gate and you're off. And I always remember one of the guys who was in jail with me, who was a police officer. I remember him clear as day. I was outside Subway in Lancaster and he rung me, and he'd already been out 6 months. And he rung me and he was like, how are you? I was like, yeah, I'm buzzing. I'm back in life. I'm driving my car around the one-way system, listening to music. All sounds really stupid stuff, but it's stuff that you've not had for a period of time. I remember him saying, just calm down a little bit. You're going to get to a point where it hits. And he was bang on. There was a period of, I'd say it was about a 6 month to a year period where it all kicks in. Like I've told you about the jobs that I've done, fire brigade, prison service, blah, blah. And you think, well, I can't do any of that anymore. And neither can I do any job that has that kind of responsibility or respect or interest. So it's like, this now takes on a monumental change. I don't shy away from anything that I've done. I know I did wrong. Years later, I know possibly why I did it and what should have done, what shouldn't have done. But I want people to learn from my mistake, see that I'm just a normal lad. It could have happened to anyone's son or daughter. And I just want people to stop before they go into that job specifically and really take on board what's involved. and the risks that you face. And I mean, look at me, you can learn from it. I wouldn't want anyone to go through what I've gone through. Ultimately, I put myself in that position. But if you listen to what I'm telling you, it's not worth it. You know, whether it's 400 quid, 4 grand, whatever it is, it's not worth it to what it costs you after you agreed to do it. 400 quid has cost me mentally, physically, emotionally, probably 13 years of my life because I couldn't deal with what I'd done.